This is Bone Chillers to disturb your dreams. Dare to join us? Click subscribe, ring the bell. But remember, we cannot guarantee your safety from the nightmares that await. Prepare to be thrilled, chilled, and filled with a sense of dread you'll find nowhere else. Welcome to the darkness. We've been waiting.
The Exorcism of a Young Peasant. In the small, remote village of Monteverde, nestled between the rolling hills and dense forests of central Italy, a tale of terror and triumph unfolded. Father Gabriele Amorth, a young and fervent priest, faced his first solo exorcism challenge, a task that would mark him forever in the annals of the spiritual world. The subject of the exorcism was a young peasant named Marco, known for his slim build and gentle demeanor. Marco's affliction began subtly, with strange behaviors and uncharacteristic outbursts. However, it soon escalated into a nightmarish ordeal. The villagers whispered in hushed tones about the unnatural changes in Marco, the once humble and soft-spoken youth. Father Amorth, having studied under seasoned exorcists, felt a mix of trepidation and resolve as he prepared for the daunting task. The exorcism was to take place in the ancient chapel of St. Agnes, a place of deep spiritual significance to the villagers. As Father Amorth began the ritual, the air in the chapel grew inexplicably cold, a chill that seeped into the bones of those present. The windows and walls of the chapel, usually warm from the burning candles, frosted over with ice crystals, creating a surreal and eerie atmosphere. Marco, bound securely in a chair, transformed before their eyes. His once meek voice turned deep and menacing, speaking fluent English, a language he had never learned. The words that spilled from his lips were curses and threats, aimed at Father Amorth with a venom that chilled the heart. The young priest, though shaken, continued with unwavering faith, reciting the rites of exorcism with a strength that seemed to emanate from beyond himself. In a terrifying display of other-worldly power, Marco's body stiffened and, defying all laws of nature, began to levitate 3 feet above the ground. The onlookers gasped in horror, their faith and fears intertwining in a tumultuous storm of emotions. As Father Amorth pressed on, the demon within Marco, identifying itself as Lucifer, announced with a mocking sneer the exact day and hour it would depart from the young man's body. This declaration, far from deterring Father Amorth, only strengthened his resolve. He knew the path ahead would be fraught with peril, but his faith was unshakable. For weeks, Father Amorth visited Marco, each session more intense than the last. The chapel became a battleground between the forces of good and evil, with the young priest and the possessed peasant at its center. The villagers kept a vigil, their prayers a constant backdrop to the struggle within the chapel walls. Then, on the appointed day and hour, as the demon had predicted, a final, harrowing exorcism took place. The air in the chapel turned so cold that breath became visible, swirling around Father Amorth and Marco like spectral snakes. The young man's body convulsed violently, and his screams pierced the silence of the chapel. And then, as quickly as it had begun, it was over. Marco collapsed, limp and exhausted, but free. The air in the chapel warmed, and the ice melted away, as if it had never been. Marco, his eyes clear and bright, spoke of feeling new and light, free from the oppressive darkness that had consumed him. The villagers rejoiced, their faith in the young priest and the power of good solidified. Father Amorth, though relieved, knew that this victory was but one battle in a much larger war against the forces of darkness. The story of the exorcism of the young peasant spread far beyond the borders of Monteverde, becoming a testament to the power of faith and the enduring battle between light and darkness. Father Amorth, marked by this experience, continued his journey as an exorcist, forever changed by the day he faced Lucifer and emerged victorious. St. Peter Basilica's haunted secrets. In the heart of Vatican City, St. Peter's Basilica stands as a testament to divine architectural prowess. Yet, beneath its grandeur lies a chilling secret, one rooted in its foundation and veiled by centuries of faith and reverence. The story begins in the early 16th century, during the ambitious construction of the new Basilica. The site chosen was steeped in history, a land that once housed a pagan necropolis. This detail, though known to a few, was largely overlooked in the fervor of erecting a monument to Christianity. As construction commenced, unsettling incidents began to unfold. Workers spoke of hearing whispers emanating from the ground, often in languages unknown or long forgotten. Tools disappeared only to reappear in bizarre places, and shadows flitted at the edges of vision, always just out of clear sight. The most alarming events, however, were the unexplained deaths. Workers were found lifeless, their faces contorted in expressions of sheer terror. No medical explanation could be found. Their bodies were unmarred, yet their hearts had simply stopped. Panic spread among the workers. Some refused to return, while others sought solace in prayer, hoping for protection against the unseen forces they believed roamed the site. As the incidents escalated, even the clergy were not spared. The Pope, a robust man, suddenly fell gravely ill. His condition baffled physicians. He suffered from night terrors, waking up screaming, drenched in sweat, speaking of shadows, whispering blasphemies. Cardinals whispered of curses and unholy presences, and finally, the Vatican could no longer ignore the rumors. It was decided that an exorcism of the site was necessary, a task entrusted to Father Lorenzo, a seasoned exorcist known for his unwavering faith and unorthodox methods. Father Lorenzo arrived at the site as dusk fell, a time he believed the veil between worlds was thinnest. He began his ritual, reciting prayers and sprinkling holy water. As he progressed, the air grew heavier, and the faint whispers became discernible, uttering ancient incantations. Unfazed, Father Lorenzo continued, his voice rising over the cacophony of voices. He reached the heart of the basilica, where the disturbances were most potent. There, he was confronted with a sight that tested his faith to its core. The ground split open, revealing a glimpse into the necropolis below. Skeletal hands reached out, as if beckoning or pleading. The air was filled with a chorus of agonized screams and malevolent laughter, a sound that threatened to overwhelm even the bravest soul. Father Lorenzo, though shaken, stood his ground. He raised his crucifix, his prayers becoming fervent declarations of faith. The ground trembled, and a blinding light emanated from the crucifix, piercing the darkness. The hands retracted, and the voices waned, their power waning under the relentless onslaught of holy will. With a final prayer, Father Lorenzo sealed the rift, the ground closing as if it had never parted. The exorcism was successful, but Father Lorenzo was forever changed. He spoke little of that night, and when he did, his words were of caution, a reminder of the thin line between the divine and the profane. In the aftermath, the construction of St. Peter's Basilica continued, now enveloped in a newfound reverence. The workers completed their task with a sense of urgency, driven by a desire to seal the land with a structure that represented hope and faith. The Basilica was completed, its beauty unmatched, a jewel in the crown of the Vatican. Yet those who knew of its troubled beginnings looked upon it with a mixture of awe and fear. To this day, whispers circulate among the clergy and visitors alike. Some claim to hear faint cries on quiet nights or see fleeting shadows in the corners of the magnificent halls. They speak of Father Lorenzo's exorcism, of the night when the veil was lifted, revealing the ancient horrors that lurked beneath. St. Peter's Basilica stands as a symbol of faith triumphing over darkness. Yet its foundation remains a testament to the complex tapestry of human belief and the eternal struggle between light and shadow. The Basilica, in all its glory, continues to watch over the faithful, its secrets buried deep, but never quite forgotten.
Mysterious light at Pope John Paul II's tomb, year 2013. In the dim corridors of St. Peter's Basilica, where history whispered through the marbled walls, an eerie silence hung in the air. It was 2013, a year marked by an unprecedented event: the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. The Vatican, a city-state veiled in mystery and tradition, found itself at the centre of the world's attention. Yet within its sacred confines, a more profound, unsettling occurrence was about to unfold. It began on a cold February night when the moon cast a spectral glow over the Basilica's towering spires. Luca, a young seminarian passionate about his faith, was assigned the night vigil at the tomb of Pope John Paul II. He had always felt a deep connection to the late Pope, drawn by his charisma and teachings. As Luca settled into the dimly lit chamber, he felt a strange sense of anticipation, as though the air itself was charged with an unseen energy. Hours passed, and the only sound was the distant echo of his own breath. Suddenly, a faint glow appeared near the tomb. Luca rubbed his eyes, thinking it a trick of the light or a reflection. But the glow intensified, coalescing into a brilliant, blinding light. And there, in the midst of the luminance, a figure began to take shape. Luca's heart raced. The figure was human-like, radiating a celestial light, its features slowly becoming distinct. It was Pope John Paul II, or so it seemed. But something was amiss. The apparition's eyes, dark and abyssal, bore no resemblance to the warm, kind eyes of the late Pope. A sense of deep unease settled over Luca. This was no benevolent spirit. The figure stepped forward, its movements unnatural, as if constrained by an unseen force. Luca wanted to run, to scream, but he was rooted to the spot, transfixed by the spectral Pope. A voice, not heard but felt, resonated in his mind. A voice filled with sorrow and torment, speaking in a language he did not understand, yet somehow comprehended. The light. It binds me, the apparition whispered. Trapped between worlds, I am a prisoner of my own legacy. Luca's skin prickled with fear. This was no mere haunting. It was a soul in agony, ensnared by something far darker than death itself. The figure raised its hand, pointing towards the altar, where an ancient relic lay, a crucifix belonging to Pope John Paul II. Luca's gaze followed, and he saw it, a faint, sinister shadow, writhing around the crucifix, feeding off the residual energy of the late Pope's faith. The shadow, it feeds on the light, on the faith of the millions who mourn me. It seeks to break the barrier, to unleash its darkness upon the world. Luca understood. The shadow was a malevolent entity, drawn to the immense spiritual power of the Pope's resting place. It had ensnared the Pope's spirit, using his light to strengthen itself. "What can I do?" Luca asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Break the bond, release me, and the shadow will weaken," the apparition replied. Luca approached the altar, his hands trembling. The crucifix was encased in glass, a symbol of reverence and protection. He knew what he had to do. With a heavy heart, he shattered the glass and grasped the crucifix. The shadow recoiled, screeching in a cacophony of unearthly sounds. Luca held the crucifix high, his faith a shield against the darkness. The apparition of Pope John Paul II began to fade, its light diminishing, but not before a final message resonated in Luca's soul. "Remember, true faith is the light that dispels all shadows." The chamber fell into darkness, the shadow vanishing like smoke in the wind. Luca, exhausted and shaken, knew that the battle was not over. The shadow was weakened but not destroyed. It would seek another source of light, another soul to corrupt. The next morning, Luca shared his experience with the Vatican authorities. Skeptical but concerned, they agreed to seal the tomb and perform a series of exorcisms. The incident was kept hidden from the public, attributed to the overactive imagination of a young seminarian. Years passed, and Luca rose through the ranks of the clergy, always vigilant, always aware of the darkness that lingered at the edge of faith. He often visited the tomb, now a quiet, unassuming place, and wondered about the true nature of the light and the shadow. The mystery of the light at Pope John Paul II's tomb remained unsolved, a chilling reminder of the unseen battles waged in the realm of faith and beyond. And Luca, forever changed by that fateful night, carried the burden of the truth, a guardian against the shadows that sought to engulf the light.
Airy figure in St. Peter's Basilica, year 2007. In the year 2007, a British couple, Sarah and Michael, embarked on a long-awaited vacation to Rome. Their itinerary was filled with the usual historical and cultural landmarks, but none so anticipated as the visit to St. Peter's Basilica. Renowned for its architectural grandeur and religious significance, the Basilica stood as a testament to centuries of history. On a brisk autumn morning, they arrived at St. Peter's. The plaza was bustling with tourists and worshippers alike, but inside, a serene hush enveloped them. Sarah, an avid photographer, was captivated by the intricate artwork and started snapping photos, while Michael admired the awe-inspiring dome. As they ventured deeper into the basilica, they noticed a secluded chapel, partly hidden behind a row of marble columns. Intrigued, they wandered off the beaten path. The chapel, bathed in the soft light filtering through a stained glass window, felt strangely isolated from the rest of the basilica. In the chapel, Sarah's attention was drawn to a peculiar statue of an angel. It was unlike any other in the basilica. Its features were blurred, almost as if in motion, and its expression was one of profound sorrow. Feeling a chill despite the warm air, Sarah raised her camera and took a photo. The moment she did, a sudden gust of wind swept through the chapel, extinguishing the flickering candles. Startled, they left the chapel and rejoined the throng of tourists, trying to shake off the eerie feeling. It wasn't until later that evening, back at their hotel, that they revisited the day's events. Sarah uploaded her photos onto her laptop, and they began to reminisce about their visit. However, when they reached the photo of the angel statue, they were met with disbelief. The image showed not the statue, but an ethereal figure seemingly floating above the chapel floor. It resembled an angel, but its form was hazy, almost holographic, and its eyes seemed to bore into them with an intensity that was unsettling. Sleep eluded them that night. Sarah was particularly disturbed, convinced that they had captured something supernatural. The next morning, they decided to return to the basilica, drawn by a mix of fear and curiosity. Arriving at the chapel, they found it cordoned off, with a priest standing guard. He was an older man, his face etched with lines of worry. Seeing their interest, he approached them. In hushed tones, he revealed a long-kept secret of the basilica. The statue, he explained, was an ancient relic, rumored to be a conduit between the earthly realm and the divine. Legends spoke of it as a guardian of a sacred artifact hidden beneath the chapel. Over the centuries, many had tried to uncover the artifact, but all met with mysterious and tragic ends. The priest believed that Sarah's photograph had awakened something. Since the previous day, strange occurrences had been reported in the basilica: unexplained shadows, whispers in Latin, and a pervasive sense of dread. Sarah and Michael were skeptical but intrigued. With the priest's reluctant blessing, they decided to investigate further. As night fell, they entered the now deserted basilica, making their way to the chapel. The air was thick with anticipation. Using her camera's flash as their only source of light, they began to examine the chapel. Sarah's camera revealed more than just the chapel's details. It seemed to pierce a veil into another realm. In each photo, ghostly figures appeared, crowding around them, their faces twisted in anguish. As they delved deeper, they discovered a hidden passage beneath the statue. The passage led to a small chamber, in the center of which lay an ancient tome, its pages filled with arcane symbols and writings. As Sarah photographed the book, the ethereal figures in her pictures became more agitated, their forms swirling around them in a spectral storm. A realization dawned on them. These were the souls of those who had sought the artifact, trapped between worlds. The air grew colder, and a voice echoed through the chamber, ancient and commanding, speaking in Latin. It was a warning, urging them to leave or face the same fate as those who had come before. Terrified, they fled the chamber, the ghostly figures in pursuit. Reaching the chapel, they found the angel statue weeping tears of blood, its sorrowful gaze following them as they escaped into the night. Back at their hotel, they grappled with the reality of what they had experienced. The photographs they had taken in the chamber were now blank, as if whatever they had captured was meant to remain hidden. The next day, they left Rome, the memory of their encounter lingering like a dark shadow. The photographs of the ethereal figure in St. Peter's Basilica remained the only evidence of their otherworldly experience, a haunting reminder of the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows of history.
The ghostly legend of the Sisto Bridge. In the heart of Rome, where ancient stones whisper tales of ages past, there lies a bridge steeped in legend and fear. This is the story of the Sisto Bridge and the ghost of Donna Olympia Pamphili, whose spectral presence chills the bones of those who dare to tread near it on the night of January 7th. Long ago, Donna Olympia was a woman of unparalleled beauty and cunning, the sister-in-law of Pope Innocent X. Her influence over the Pope was undeniable, and many whispered that it was she who held the true power within the Vatican walls. Olympia's ambition knew no bounds, and her greed was insatiable. It was said that she even coveted the vast wealth of the Vatican itself. As fate would have it, Pope Innocent X fell gravely ill, and sensing her impending downfall, Donna Olympia hatched a desperate plan. On a cold January night, under the cover of darkness, she orchestrated the theft of an immense fortune in gold and jewels from the Vatican treasury. With her ill-gotten gains loaded into a grand carriage, she fled across the Sisto Bridge, vanishing into the night. But her escape was not to be. A violent storm descended upon Rome that very night, and as Donna Olympia raced across the bridge, a bolt of lightning struck her carriage with a deafening roar. In an instant, both she and her stolen treasure were swallowed by the raging Tiber River below, never to be seen again. Or so it was thought. Each year, on the anniversary of that fateful night, a chilling phenomenon occurs. As the clock strikes midnight, a ghostly carriage drawn by spectral horses emerges from the mist at one end of the Sisto Bridge. Seated within is the ghost of Donna Olympia, her once beautiful face now a ghastly visage of terror and remorse. The carriage races across the bridge at a breakneck speed, the clatter of hooves echoing against the ancient stones. Those who have witnessed this apparition speak of a cold so penetrating it freezes the soul, and a sense of dread so overwhelming it can drive a person mad. Legend has it that Donna Olympia is eternally bound to reenact her flight, a punishment for her greed and betrayal. It is said that she searches in vain for a way to cross over to the afterlife, but the stolen gold that sealed her fate also chains her to this world. But there is more to this tale, a darker twist that few dare to speak of. Some believe that the ghost of Donna Olympia possesses a sinister power. On the night of her appearance, it is said that she can claim the soul of anyone who locks eyes with her, dragging them into the depths of the Tiber to share in her eternal torment. This is the curse of the Sisto Bridge, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead is perilously thin. Many avoid the bridge on the night of January 7th, fearing the wrath of Donna Olympia's restless spirit. But there are always those, driven by curiosity or disbelief, who come to witness the spectacle. They gather in the shadows, watching and waiting as the clock ticks closer to midnight. And then, with the tolling of the bell, she appears. The ghostly carriage careens across the bridge, a blur of spectral light and shadow. The air grows colder, the mist thicker, and for a brief moment, the world seems to stand still. In that moment, a choice must be made, to look away and be spared, or to gaze upon the ghost of Donna Olympia and risk a fate worse than death. It is a gamble that has claimed many souls over the centuries, drawn into the abyss by their own fear and fascination. As the carriage reaches the other side of the bridge, it vanishes as suddenly as it appeared, leaving behind only the echo of its passing and a lingering sense of dread. The night returns to silence, the river flows on, indifferent to the horrors it has witnessed. But the legend of Donna Olympia lives on, a tale of greed, betrayal, and the unending torment of a soul condemned to wander in limbo, It is a reminder that some sins cannot be forgiven, and some ghosts can never be laid to rest. So if you ever find yourself in Rome on the night of January 7th, beware the Sisto Bridge. For there the ghost of Donna Olympia waits, forever trapped between two worlds, forever bound to relive her flight across the Tiber. And if you are not careful, you may just become part of her eternal story.
Thank you for watching, and remember, the darkness awaits. Until our paths cross again, stay fearful and stay subscribed.